What happened when the golden child finally needed your help? The text message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, interrupting my Netflix binge after another 12-hour coding session. Hey, can we talk? It's important. Ryan. I stared at my phone screen, wondering if I was hallucinating from too much caffeine and blue light. My golden child brother hadn't voluntarily contacted me in over 2 years, not since he'd laughed at my boring office job at his housewarming party for the penthouse apartment our parents helped him buy. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. He was typing. Deleting. Typing again. I know we don't talk much, but I really need to discuss something with you. Are you free tomorrow? I screenshot the messages and sent them to my roommate Jake with the caption, "Am I having a stroke?" He responded immediately with 3 crying laughing emojis and plot twist of the century. Ryan Michael Chen, yes, he got the cool middle name too, had been the family's shining star since the day he was born 3 years after me. While I struggled through public school with undiagnosed ADHD, earning B's and C's despite staying up until 2 a.m. studying, Ryan coasted through private academy with gentlemen C's that our parents celebrated like Nobel Prizes. When I got into State University on partial academic scholarship, working 25 hours a week at GameStop to cover the rest, they threw him a graduation party with a live band when he barely scraped into the same school with their full financial backing. Ryan's just naturally gifted, Mom would say, ruffling his hair while he played video games instead of doing homework. He doesn't need to try as hard as some people. Some people. That's what I was in their eyes, not their eldest daughter Sarah, not their firstborn, just some people. The golden treatment continued through college. While I lived on ramen noodles and free pizza from campus events, Ryan got monthly care packages worth more than my food budget. While I worked internships for course credit and coffee money, our parents funded his entrepreneurial journey through 3 different startup attempts, each more half-baked than the last. A food truck selling deconstructed sushi that lasted 2 months. An app for rating public restrooms that never made it past the wireframe stage. Some cryptocurrency venture I never fully understood that involved a lot of buzzwords and zero actual revenue. Meanwhile, I graduated summa cum laude, landed a junior developer position at a mid-tier tech company, and slowly climbed my way up through actual merit and 60-hour work weeks. I learned React, Python, and Java on my own time. I earned every promotion by building features that improved user engagement by double digits. I saved every dollar I could, driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic while Ryan upgraded from BMW to Mercedes with daddy's money. The family dynamic never changed. At holidays, Ryan would regale everyone with stories of his latest venture capital meetings and disruption strategies, while I'd mention a successful product launch to polite nods before someone changed the subject back to his revolutionary business ideas. When I bought my own condo last year, no parental assistance, no co-signers, just my own savings and credit score, I got a "that's nice, honey," from Mom. When Ryan moved into his downtown penthouse the same month, they threw another party. Now here I was, 3 years into a senior engineering position at a company everyone had actually heard of, making more money than I ever dreamed possible growing up, and my phone was buzzing with the most words Ryan had ever personally directed at me. Sure, I texted back. Tomorrow after work. Coffee shop on 5th Street, 6 p.m. I had no idea I was about to become his lifeline. Ryan was already sitting in the corner booth when I arrived at Grind Coffee, which surprised me. The golden child was never early to anything, punctuality was for people who had to worry about consequences. He looked different though. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, there were dark circles under his eyes, and he was wearing a plain gray hoodie instead of his typical designer button-down. The Rolex was gone too, replaced by what looked like a cheap fitness tracker. "Sarah, thanks for coming." He stood up awkwardly, like he wasn't sure if we were supposed to hug. We didn't. "I got you a latte. 2 sugars, no foam, right?" I blinked. He remembered my coffee order. "Thanks." I slid into the booth across from him, noting how he kept fidgeting with his phone, flipping it face down, then face up, then down again. "So," I said after a long sip, "what's this about?" "Let me guess, you need someone to beta test your latest app idea." His laugh came out strangled. "I wish it were that simple." He ran both hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it transported me back to watching him charm his way out of trouble throughout our childhood. "The thing is. God, I don't even know how to say this. Just say it, Ryan. Velocity Tech is done. Finished. We're filing for bankruptcy next week." Velocity Tech was his latest venture, some AI-powered logistics platform he'd been working on for the past 18 months. Last Christmas, he'd spent 2 hours explaining to our extended family how it was going to revolutionize supply chain management and make him the next Elon Musk. Our parents had been glowing with pride, telling anyone who'd listened that their son was about to change the world. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, failure sucked. "What happened?" "Everything." His voice cracked. "We burned through our series of funding in 10 months instead of 18. Our lead developer quit and took half the team with him to a competitor. Turns out our revolutionary algorithm was basically a slightly modified version of something that already existed, so we got hit with a patent lawsuit. Our biggest client dropped us last month when they realized our platform actually made their logistics slower." I winced. In the startup world, that was a perfect storm of catastrophic fuck-ups. "But the real problem," Ryan continued, his voice getting smaller, "is that I personally guaranteed some of the loans. I put up my condo as collateral. The penthouse is gone, I'm getting evicted next Friday. I owe $340,000 to various creditors, my credit is destroyed, and..." He looked up at me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before, genuine fear. "Mom and Dad mortgaged their house to give me the last cash infusion. If I can't pay them back, they could lose everything too." The coffee shop suddenly felt too quiet. I could hear the espresso machine hissing, the murmur of conversations at other tables, the aggressive typing of someone working on a laptop near the window. Normal sounds from a normal evening, while my brother sat across from me admitting that his golden boy life had imploded so spectacularly it might take our parents down with him. "How much did they give you?" I asked quietly. $200,000. Their entire retirement savings plus the equity loan. My stomach dropped. Our parents were both 63. Dad had been planning to retire next year from his job at the insurance company. Mom's teacher pension was modest at best. Ryan, I whispered. What the hell were you thinking? I wasn't, he said, and for the first time in our lives, my little brother looked genuinely ashamed. The worst part, Ryan continued, his voice barely above a whisper, is that I knew it was falling apart 6 months ago. The numbers weren't adding up, our burn rate was insane, and Marcus, our CTO, kept telling me we needed to pivot or shut down. But I couldn't admit it. Not after the Christmas dinner speech, not after Dad introduced me to his golf buddies as the entrepreneur, not after Mom started telling her book club I was going to be featured in Forbes. He laughed bitterly. You know what's funny? Marcus actually suggested I talk to you back in March. He said we needed someone with real technical experience to audit our code and help us figure out why everything was running so slowly. But I told him we didn't need help from someone who just maintains other people's systems. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a slap. Even when his company was dying, even when someone was literally suggesting I could help, his first instinct was to dismiss my expertise. Just like always. So instead you took Mom and Dad's retirement money, I said, working hard to keep my voice level. Instead I panicked and convinced myself that one more cash injection would buy us enough time to fix everything. He picked at the cardboard sleeve on his coffee cup. I told them it was a sure thing. I showed them projections that I knew were bullshit. I let them believe their investment would triple in 2 years. The magnitude of what he'd done was starting to sink in. This wasn't just Ryan's failure, he dragged our parents down with him through what sounded like deliberate deception. They don't know yet, he continued. About the bankruptcy, I mean. They think I'm just going through a rough patch. Dad keeps texting me articles about successful entrepreneurs who struggled before they made it big. Mom bought me a care package last week with energy drinks and granola bars to help me power through the challenges. I closed my eyes. Of course they did. I have to tell them by Sunday, Ryan said. The bankruptcy attorney says I can't wait any longer, there are disclosure requirements, and if they find out from legal documents instead of me. He trailed off. Ryan, what exactly are you asking me for? He took a shaky breath. I need a job. A real job with a steady paycheck so I can start paying them back. I know people at your company, right? Senior developers make good money, maybe not enough to fix this quickly, but enough to start making payments, show the creditors I'm serious about repaying everything. I stared at him. You want me to help you get hired at Pinnacle Solutions? I know it's a lot to ask. Do you have any idea what our technical interview process is like? I interrupted. We do 4 rounds. Algorithm challenges, system design, code reviews, and a practical debugging session. Candidates with computer science degrees and 5 years of experience fail our interviews regularly. I have a business degree and 18 months of startup experience where, by your own admission, you built something that made client operations actively worse. Ryan's face flushed. I managed a development team. I understand the business side of technology. That has to count for something. You managed a team that quit to work for your competitor. Sarah, please. His voice cracked again. I know I haven't been. I know we're not close. But I'm desperate here. I'll take any position, junior developer, project coordinator, hell, I'll answer phones in customer service. I just need something steady while I figure out how to fix this mess. The golden child, asking to answer phones. A year ago, the irony would have been delicious. Now it just felt sad. And if I can't get you hired? He was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll have to tell Mom and Dad that their retirement is gone, and I have no way to pay them back. The weight of his words hung between us like smoke. I watched my brother's face, searching for any hint of the cocky entrepreneur who dismissed my career as maintaining other people's systems just 6 months ago. All I saw was desperation. There's something else, Ryan said, his voice even quieter now. The creditors. They're not all traditional lenders. My blood went cold. What do you mean? Marcus introduced me to some investors back in January. Private guys, off the books. They offered bridge financing when the bank loans weren't enough. He wouldn't meet my eyes. $50,000 at 30% interest, compounded monthly. Jesus Christ, Ryan. Loan sharks. They seemed legitimate. They had business cards, a downtown office. But the interest has been capitalizing for 8 months now, and they're not exactly patient about payment plans. He pulled up his sleeve, showing me a bruise on his forearm that looked suspiciously finger-shaped. Last week they made it clear that bankruptcy court won't make their debt disappear. I felt sick. How much do you owe them now? $87,000. And growing every day. This was so much worse than I'd thought. Ryan hadn't just failed, he'd failed catastrophically and dangerously. The coffee shop suddenly felt too bright, too normal for the conversation we were having. The eviction notice gave me until Friday, he continued. But Tony, that's their collection guy, said I have until Thursday to show up with at least $20,000 or they're going to start getting creative about motivating me. You need to go to the police. And tell them what? That I borrowed money from people I knew were sketchy and now they want it back. I signed contracts, Sarah. Stupid, predatory contracts, but legally binding ones. I rubbed my temples, trying to think. What about Mom and Dad? Do they know about the loan sharks? God, no. If Dad found out I borrowed money from people who... Ryan gestured at his bruised arm. It would kill him. You know how he is about conducting business with integrity. Dad, who still shook hands on deals and believed everyone was fundamentally honest until proven otherwise. Dad, who taught us both that your word was your bond and hard work always paid off. The same dad who was probably at home right now, bragging to his neighbors about his entrepreneur son. I've been sleeping in my car for 3 days, Ryan admitted. Parking at different hotels so no one notices. Tony knows where I work, or worked, I guess, and he's been by the penthouse twice looking for me. Ryan, this is insane. You can't live like this. What choice do I have? I can't go home and put Mom and Dad in danger. I can't exactly check into a hotel. And I definitely can't make this Tony's problem just disappear by hiding. I watched him fidget with his cheap fitness tracker, probably had to sell the Rolex to make rent, I realized. Everything about him looked diminished. Smaller. Like someone had let the air out of his golden boy balloon. If I could get you an interview, I said slowly, and that's a big if, you'd need to start as a junior developer. Maybe 45,000 to start. That's not going to solve your problems quickly. His eyes lit up with the first hope I'd seen all evening. But it's a start, right? Steady income, and maybe after 6 months I could get promoted. Ryan, you owe over $400,000 to people who are threatening you physically. A junior developer salary isn't going to fix this. Then what am I supposed to do? His voice rose enough that other customers glanced over. Because I'm out of options here, Sarah. You're literally my last hope. And there it was. The golden child's last hope was his overlooked sister. I stared at my brother across the coffee shop table, watching him fidget with that cheap fitness tracker, and felt something shift inside me. Not sympathy, not yet, but a strange clarity about the moment we were in. You're my last hope, he'd said. The golden child's last hope was the sister he'd spent 28 years treating like a consolation prize. Ryan, I said carefully, before we talk about what I might be able to do, I need to understand something. You said Marcus suggested bringing me in 6 months ago, and you refused because I just maintain other people's systems. What exactly did you tell him about me? He had the grace to look embarrassed. I said you worked in legacy code maintenance and wouldn't understand our cutting-edge architecture. Legacy code maintenance. I repeated the word slowly. Do you even know what I do at Pinnacle? You're a senior developer. I'm a staff software engineer and the technical lead for our AI infrastructure team. I architect systems that process 15 million transactions daily. Last month, I gave a keynote at DevCon about machine learning optimization. I leaned forward. That cutting-edge architecture you were so proud of. I could have told you in March exactly why it was failing. Ryan's face went pale. I didn't know. You never asked. In 3 years, you've never once asked me what I actually do for work. You've been telling people I maintain legacy code while I've been building the kind of systems your startup was trying to compete with. The irony was almost too perfect. His company had failed trying to build what I built successfully every day, and he'd been too proud to even consider that his boring office job sister might have valuable expertise. Sarah, I'm sorry. I really didn't know. Here's what else you don't know, I continued, my voice steady but ice cold. Mom and Dad's retirement money. The $200,000 they gave you. I could have told them it was a bad investment. They never asked me either. No one thought to run Velocity Tech by the actual software engineer in the family. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. For once in his life, the golden child had nothing to say. And those loan sharks threatening you? The ones you borrowed from because traditional investors wouldn't back your failing company? I have friends who work in fintech fraud detection. There are legal ways to deal with predatory lending. But you didn't think to ask me about that either. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Marcus Chen. Your former CTO. He connected with me on LinkedIn 8 months ago after seeing my DevCon presentation. Small world, right? Ryan's eyes widened. Marcus knows you. He's been trying to recruit me for months. Apparently, after he left your sinking ship, he landed a senior architecture role at Dataflow Solutions. They've been headhunting Pinnacle employees pretty aggressively. I showed him my phone screen, displaying a message thread with Marcus from just last week. He specifically mentioned wanting to discuss a staff-level position with equity options. You could have, wait, are you saying you could have worked with Marcus this whole time? I'm saying the technical expert you needed to save Velocity Tech has been in your family for 28 years, and it never occurred to anyone to include me in the conversation. Ryan put his head in his hands. Oh God. Sarah, if I had known. You would have what? Suddenly started treating me like my expertise mattered. Started seeing me as something other than the family disappointment who got lucky with a boring office job. The coffee shop felt eerily quiet around us. I watched Ryan process the full magnitude of his assumptions, seeing him realize that his dismissive attitude toward me might have literally cost him his company. I fucked up, he whispered. I fucked up everything. Yes, I said simply. You did. But as I looked at my broken brother, drowning in debt and desperate enough to ask a sister he'd never respected for help, I realized I was holding more cards than he knew. The question now was whether I'd use them to save him or teach him what it felt like to be dismissed when you needed help most. I let the silence stretch between us, watching Ryan absorb the full weight of his miscalculations. The coffee shop's ambient noise felt amplified, the hiss of steam, the clink of ceramic, someone's laptop keyboard clicking in rapid bursts. Normal sounds from a normal Tuesday evening, while my brother sat across from me realizing he'd been catastrophically wrong about everything. There's more you don't know, I said finally. About our parents' financial situation. Ryan looked up sharply. What do you mean? Dad's pension got restructured last year. The insurance company downsized, remember? He took early retirement at 63 instead of waiting until 65 because they offered buyouts to senior employees. I pulled up my phone's calculator. His monthly pension is about 40% less than what he was planning on. But they said they were comfortable giving me the money. Because they didn't want you to know they were struggling. Mom picked up substitute teaching 3 days a week to make up the difference. That retirement fund they gave you. It wasn't extra money, Ryan. It was everything. His face went ashen. They told me it was money they'd been saving for investment opportunities. They lied to protect your feelings. Just like they've been lying about everything being fine since Dad's company restructured. I leaned back in my chair. You know how I know this? Because they asked me to look over their finances 6 months ago. Mom was worried about making their mortgage payments. You've been helping them with money. I've been covering their property taxes since January. $1,200 a month, direct deposit, so Dad wouldn't have to know Mom asked for help. The admission felt strange. I'd never told anyone about the financial support I'd been quietly providing. I also paid for Mom's dental work in March. $4,000 for a root canal and crown because their insurance wouldn't cover the full procedure. Ryan stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You've been supporting them financially while they were giving me money for the startup. They didn't want you to worry about their situation while you were pursuing your dreams. I made air quotes, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Even when they were struggling, their priority was making sure the golden child had everything he needed to succeed. Jesus Christ. Ryan ran his hands through his disheveled hair again. So when I took their $200,000, you took money they literally couldn't afford to lose, while I was already subsidizing their monthly expenses to keep them afloat. The full picture was finally coming together for him. Not only had his parents sacrificed their financial security for his failed venture, but their other daughter, the one he'd spent years dismissing, had been quietly keeping them stable while he burned through their life savings. Sarah, I had no idea. If I'd known you were helping them, you would have what? Asked me to invest in Velocity Tech instead. I laughed humorlessly. Because I actually looked into your company back in February, when Dad mentioned how excited he was about your AI logistics platform. I spent 3 hours researching your business model and technical specifications. You researched my company? Of course I did. My parents were talking about making a major investment. I wanted to understand what they were getting into. I pulled up my notes app, scrolling back to February. I even drafted an email to you with some technical concerns and suggestions for improving your algorithm efficiency. Why didn't you send it? Because when I mentioned at Sunday dinner that I'd looked into Velocity Tech, you said, and I quote, "Thanks, but we've got the technical side handled by actual experts." Ryan's shoulders sagged. I remember that conversation. Do you remember what you said next? When I suggested that maybe I could introduce you to some contacts in the logistics industry. I didn't wait for his answer. You said I probably only knew people who worked on boring enterprise stuff that wouldn't understand your disruptive approach. Sarah. Those boring enterprise contacts included the CTO of Mega Freight Industries and the head of digital transformation at Continental Supply Chain. Both companies that ended up in your target market. I showed him my LinkedIn connections. Rachel Morrison at Mega Freight has been asking me about AI logistics solutions for 8 months. She's got a budget of $15 million for digital infrastructure upgrades. The color drained from Ryan's face completely. $15 million. We've had coffee twice to discuss potential partnerships between Pinnacle and Mega Freight. She specifically mentioned needing better supply chain optimization tools. I took a long sip of my latte. Funny thing is, based on her requirements, a properly built version of your platform could have been exactly what she's looking for. Ryan looked like he might throw up. You could have connected me with a client who had $15 million to spend. Could have. But you made it very clear that my network was beneath your standards. You want to know the worst part? I continued, watching Ryan process the magnitude of his missed opportunities. Rachel Morrison isn't even the biggest fish in my network. I've been consulting on the side for 3 different logistics companies, all dealing with the exact problems Velocity Tech claimed to solve. Ryan's hands were shaking now. Consulting? You never mentioned. Why would I? Every time I tried to talk about work, you'd either change the subject or make some comment about how corporate consulting was just selling out your skills to maintain the status quo. I scrolled through my consulting contracts on my phone. I made $67,000 inside consulting last year alone. All from those boring enterprise companies you thought were beneath your disruptive vision. 67,000, he repeated weakly. Want to know what's really ironic? 2 of my consulting clients specifically asked if I knew anyone building supply chain optimization tools. This was back in April and May, right when you were desperately looking for customers. I pulled up my email history. Jennifer Park at Coastal Distribution offered to pilot test new logistics software with a guaranteed 6-month contract worth $250,000 minimum. Ryan made us sound like he'd been physically hit. $250,000 for a pilot program. Plus performance bonuses and potential expansion to their subsidiary companies if the pilot went well. Could have been over $1 million in first-year revenue. I kept my voice conversational, like I was discussing the weather. I almost mentioned it to you at Mom's birthday dinner in May. Remember that night? He nodded mutely. You spent 20 minutes explaining to Uncle Pete how traditional supply chain companies were dinosaurs that didn't understand innovation. You said anyone working with established logistics firms was just enabling their resistance to necessary disruption. I smiled without humor. So I figured you wouldn't be interested in my dinosaur clients. Sarah, please stop. His voice was barely a whisper. But I wasn't done. 28 years of being dismissed, overlooked, and treated like the family's consolation prize had crystallized into this moment, and I was finding a dark satisfaction in laying out exactly how wrong they'd all been. Then there's the technical side, I continued. Marcus wasn't kidding when he said your code was inefficient. I actually found your public GitHub repository in March. Impressive that you open-sourced some of your algorithms, by the way. Very transparent. Ryan looked confused. We didn't open-source anything. All our code was proprietary. Oh, sweetie. I turned my phone screen toward him, showing a code repository with Velocity Tech's name on it. Someone on your team was committing to public repos instead of private ones. Your entire codebase has been publicly visible for 7 months. His face went white. That's impossible. Marcus set up all our repositories. Marcus set up private repositories. But someone, based on the commit history, it looks like your junior developer Brad, was pushing updates to a public fork he created for testing. I scrolled through the commit logs. Every single piece of your proprietary algorithm, visible to anyone who bothered to look. Oh my god, Ryan breathed. The patent lawsuit. Bingo. Your competitors didn't reverse engineer your code, Ryan. They just downloaded it from GitHub like everyone else who bothered to search for Velocity Tech Logistics Optimization. I bookmarked the repository and sent him the link. 43 people starred your repo. 12 different companies forked it. You were essentially giving away your product for free while spending hundreds of thousands trying to develop it. Ryan stared at his phone screen, watching his company's entire intellectual property scroll past in neat, publicly accessible commits. We could have, if someone had noticed earlier. Someone did notice. I noticed in March, remember? When I tried to discuss technical concerns with you. I finished my latte. I even ran some preliminary performance tests on your algorithms. Want to guess what I found? He didn't answer, just kept staring at the GitHub repository like it might disappear if he looked hard enough. Your main optimization function had a nested loop inefficiency that was causing exponential slowdown as dataset size increased. A basic computer science problem that any senior developer could have spotted in 5 minutes. I pulled up my notes from March. I calculated that fixing it would have improved your platform's performance by roughly 300%. 300%, he repeated numbly. Might have been enough to keep that big client who said your platform made their logistics slower instead of faster. The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan sat frozen, staring at his phone screen where his company's entire codebase was displayed for the world to see. I watched him scroll through months of commits, watching his dreams die in real time as he realized how completely preventable his failure had been. Sarah, he finally whispered, why are you telling me all this? Because you asked for my help, I said simply. But before I decide whether to give it, I need you to understand exactly what kind of help you dismissed when you had the chance. I get it, okay? I fucked up. I was an arrogant asshole who thought I knew better than everyone else. His voice was raw. I destroyed my company, my parents' retirement, and put myself in danger with loan sharks because I was too proud to listen to the smartest person in my family. Is that what you want to hear? It's a start. I leaned forward. But there's one more thing you need to know before we discuss next steps. Ryan looked like he couldn't possibly handle another revelation, but I pressed on anyway. Marcus reached out to me yesterday, I said, pulling up my LinkedIn messages. Before your coffee invitation, actually. He wanted to give me a heads up about Velocity Tech's bankruptcy filing. Marcus contacted you. Apparently he's felt guilty for months about not pushing harder to bring me in as a consultant. He said he knew the company could have been saved if someone with real AI experience had audited the codebase early on. I showed him the message thread. He also mentioned that you've been dodging his calls since the loan shark situation escalated. Ryan's jaw tightened. Marcus doesn't understand the pressure I'm under. Actually, he understands perfectly. That's why he offered to help. I scrolled to Marcus's most recent message. He's got connections at 3 different companies that are hiring senior engineers. He specifically mentioned wanting to help you transition into a legitimate technical role where you could learn from people who actually know what they're doing. He wants to help me. He wants to help you become the engineer you always claimed to be, instead of the entrepreneur who faked it until he couldn't anymore. I met Ryan's eyes directly. But here's the catch, all 3 companies he mentioned require technical interviews that you absolutely cannot pass with your current skill level. Ryan slumped in his chair. So I'm back to asking you to get me hired somewhere I'm not qualified to work. Not exactly. I pulled up another message thread, this one with Rachel Morrison from Megafreight. I had drinks with Rachel last night, actually. Told her I might know someone who was transitioning from startup leadership into hands-on engineering work. You talked to her about me? I talked to her about a hypothetical candidate with business experience who was looking to develop stronger technical skills under the right mentorship. I turned my phone screen toward him. She's got a 6-month contract position available, business analyst working directly with their technical team on supply chain optimization projects. $48,000 for 6 months, with potential conversion to full-time if you prove you can learn. Ryan's eyes widened. She'd consider hiring me. She'd consider interviewing you. If, and this is a big if, you can demonstrate that you understand why Velocity Tech failed from a technical perspective, and that you're genuinely committed to learning instead of just looking for another opportunity to play entrepreneur. I can do that, Ryan said quickly. I mean, after everything you've explained tonight, I definitely understand what went wrong. Do you? I challenged. Because understanding what went wrong and being able to articulate technical solutions are 2 different things. Rachel's not looking for someone to admit they screwed up. She's looking for someone who can analyze complex systems and identify improvement opportunities. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, processing the opportunity I'd just presented. It wasn't the senior developer role he'd asked for, and it definitely wasn't going to solve his debt crisis overnight, but it was something real. A chance to rebuild based on actual merit instead of family connections or borrowed credibility. There's one more condition, I added. If I set up this interview, you have to tell Mom and Dad the truth about Velocity Tech before you take the job. All of it, the bankruptcy, their money, the loan sharks, everything. His face went pale again. Sarah, I can't. Yes, you can. Because they deserve to know what they're really dealing with, and because I'm not going to help you build a new life on a foundation of lies that destroyed your last one. The golden child finally had a lifeline. The question was whether he'd be brave enough to grab it. Ryan stared at me across the coffee shop table, his face cycling through emotions like a broken slot machine. Fear, hope, desperation, and something that might have been the first glimmer of genuine respect I'd ever seen from him. Tell them everything, he repeated slowly. Even about Tony and the loan sharks. Especially about that. Dad needs to know there might be dangerous people looking for you. What if they show up at the house? I kept my voice steady, but the thought genuinely terrified me. Our parents lived in the same suburban neighborhood they bought into 30 years ago, where the biggest crime was teenagers toilet papering houses on Halloween. They won't go after Mom and Dad, Ryan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Tony made it clear this was personal debt, not family debt. Ryan, you used their house as collateral for other loans. You think these people won't figure that out? I pulled up a news article on my phone. 3 months ago, a guy in Portland defaulted on a similar private loan. The collectors didn't just go after him, they started visiting his sister's workplace, his parents' grocery store, his ex-girlfriend's apartment. Made everyone in his life understand that his problem was their problem too. The color drained from his face. You think they'd really? I think you borrowed money from people who break arms to make a point, and now you're surprised they might not follow traditional debt collection protocols. I leaned forward. Mom substitutes at Jefferson Elementary twice a week. Same schedule, same parking spot, same routine. How hard do you think it would be for someone to figure that out? Ryan put his head in his hands. Oh God, what have I done? You've put our entire family at risk because you were too embarrassed to admit your business was failing. I softened my voice slightly. But it's not too late to fix this. Rachel's interview could be the start of digging yourself out, but only if you stop lying to everyone about how deep the hole really is. What if they hate me? The question came out small, vulnerable. What if Dad can't look at me anymore after he finds out I lied about everything? For a moment, I saw past the golden child facade to the scared kid underneath. The same kid who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms when we were little, back before our parents' favoritism drove a wedge between us that seemed permanent. They might, I said honestly. Dad's going to be devastated that you put Mom in danger. Mom's going to be heartbroken that you felt like you had to lie to them. But Ryan, they're going to find out eventually anyway. The bankruptcy filing is public record. The house is collateral on loans you can't pay back. Tony and his friends aren't going to just disappear if you ignore them. I know. You're right. He rubbed his eyes, looking exhausted. When should I tell them? Tomorrow night. Family dinner, like always. But this time, instead of telling them about your latest brilliant business idea, you're going to explain why their retirement fund is gone and why they might need to consider selling the house. Ryan winced. Jesus, when you put it like that. That's reality, Ryan. That's what actually happened. I checked my phone, it was almost 8 p.m., and the coffee shop was starting to empty out. I'll call Rachel tonight and see if she can meet with you Thursday morning. That gives you one day to figure out how you're going to explain this mess to our parents, and one day to prepare for an interview that could determine whether you spend the next 6 months learning a real profession or hiding from loan sharks in your Honda Civic. Thank you, he said quietly. I know I don't deserve your help after how I've treated you, but thank you. I studied my brother's face, looking for any trace of the arrogant entrepreneur who dismissed my expertise just 6 months ago. All I saw was a broken man finally understanding the consequences of his choices. Don't thank me yet, I said, standing up to leave. You still have to survive Thursday's conversation with Tony, and Friday's conversation with Mom and Dad. After that, we'll see if Rachel thinks you're worth the risk. As I walked toward the coffee shop exit, I heard Ryan call out behind me, Sarah. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not smart enough to learn what Rachel needs me to know? I turned back, seeing him silhouetted against the warm coffee shop lights, looking smaller and more lost than I'd ever seen the golden child look. Then you'll fail, I said simply. But at least this time, you'll fail honestly. I walked to my car in the coffee shop parking lot, my hands shaking slightly as I fumbled with my keys. The conversation with Ryan had drained me more than I'd expected. Seeing the golden child completely broken should have felt satisfying after 28 years of being treated like the family disappointment. Instead, I just felt hollow. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Hi honey. Just wanted to let you know we're making your favorite lasagna for Sunday dinner. Ryan said he has some exciting news to share with the family. Can't wait to see you both. Red heart. I stared at the message, my stomach churning. Sunday dinner. In 5 days, Ryan was planning to destroy our parents' world, and Mom was making lasagna like it was going to be a celebration. Before I could overthink it, I called Rachel Morrison. She picked up on the second ring. Sarah. Good to hear from you. How did your evening go? Complicated, I said, settling into my driver's seat. Remember that hypothetical candidate we discussed? The startup founder transitioning to hands-on technical work. The one who's ready to learn some humility along with actual engineering skills. That's the one. Turns out he's available for interviews sooner than expected. I took a deep breath. Rachel, I need to be completely transparent with you. The candidate is my brother. There was a pause. Your brother? Sarah, you never mentioned having a brother in tech. Because until yesterday, he wasn't in tech. He was in business failure, masquerading as tech innovation. I gave her the abbreviated version, Velocity Tech has collapsed, Ryan's complete lack of technical skills, and his desperate need for legitimate work. So you're asking me to interview someone with no real technical background, whose company just went bankrupt, because he's your brother? I'm asking you to interview someone who's finally ready to admit he doesn't know what he's doing and needs to start from scratch. Someone who just learned the hard way that business buzzwords can't replace actual engineering competence. Rachel was quiet for a moment. What makes you think he's genuinely ready to learn? In my experience, failed entrepreneurs usually just look for the next opportunity to avoid doing the actual work. Because he's got $400,000 in debt and loan sharks threatening him if he doesn't start making payments by Thursday, I said bluntly. His next opportunity is bankruptcy court or worse. He's finally desperate enough to consider that maybe his sister, who just maintains legacy code, might know something useful. Loan sharks. Rachel's voice sharpened. Sarah, that's serious. Is your family safe? Not really. That's why I need him employed and paying them back as quickly as possible. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. I know it's a huge ask, Rachel. If you can't do it, I understand completely. Actually, she said slowly, it might work perfectly. I've been looking for someone to handle the client relations side of our logistics optimization project. Someone who can translate between our technical team and the business stakeholders. Your brother's startup experience, even failed startup experience, might actually be valuable there. My heart jumped. Really? If he can demonstrate that he understands why his technical approach failed, and if he's genuinely willing to learn instead of trying to lead, then yes. We need someone who's made mistakes and learned from them. Rachel paused. But Sarah, I'm doing this as a favor to you. If he comes in with attitude, or tries to pitch me his revolutionary ideas, or treats this like a stepping stone to his next venture, I'll end the interview in 10 minutes. He won't, I said, hoping I was right. Can you meet with him Thursday morning? Thursday works. 10 a.m. at our downtown office. And Sarah? Make sure he brings references from his technical team members, not just business contacts. I want to hear from people who actually worked with his code. After I hung up, I sat in my car for another 10 minutes, staring at Mom's text about Sunday dinner. Rachel had just handed Ryan a genuine opportunity, not a handout, not nepotism, but a real chance to prove himself based on merit. The question was whether he'd rise to meet it or find a way to sabotage himself before Thursday morning. I was about to find out if the golden child could finally learn to earn his place in the world. I got home to find 3 missed calls from Ryan and a string of increasingly panicked text messages. Sarah, I fucked up. Tony showed up at the hotel I was parked at. He knows about Thursday's deadline. Someone told him about the bankruptcy filing. I think he's been following me. He knew I met with you tonight. Call me back, please. I'm scared. My blood went cold. I'd been so focused on Rachel's interview and Sunday's family dinner that I'd somehow forgotten the most immediate threat. Ryan had less than 48 hours to come up with $20,000 or face whatever creative motivation Tony had in mind. I called him back immediately. Sarah, thank God. His voice was shaky, distorted by what sounded like road noise. I'm driving around trying to figure out where to sleep tonight. Tony was waiting by my car when I got back to the Marriott parking lot. What did he say? He asked if I'd had a productive family meeting tonight. Sarah, he knew I was meeting with you. He knew which coffee shop, what time. Ryan's voice cracked. He said family meetings are good for exploring all available resources and that he hoped my resources were more liquid than my business prospects. I felt sick. Ryan, you need to go to the police right now. With what evidence? He didn't threaten me directly. Just stood there smiling while he told me he was impressed by my sister's nice condo and wondered if software engineers made good money. The implication hit me like a truck. Sarah, I think he looked you up. He mentioned Pinnacle Solutions by name. Jesus Christ. I started pacing around my living room, my mind racing. Okay, listen to me. Drive straight to the police station downtown. File a report about harassment and implied threats. Get it on record. And tell them what? That I borrowed money from sketchy people and now I'm surprised they're acting sketchy. You tell them that creditors are stalking your family members and making veiled threats. That's harassment regardless of the underlying debt. I grabbed my laptop and started Googling. There are laws about debt collection practices, Ryan. Even private lenders can't threaten family members. But what if filing a report makes things worse? What if it pisses Tony off and he decides to escalate? I understood his fear, but the alternative was worse. Ryan, he already knows where I live and where I work. He's already escalating. At least if there's a police report, there's documentation if something happens. Okay. I'm heading there now. I heard his turn signal clicking through the phone. But Sarah, what about the 20,000? Even if the police scare him off temporarily, the debt doesn't disappear. And if I don't show up Thursday with cash? That was the real problem. All the police reports in the world wouldn't change the fact that Ryan legitimately owed these people money, and they weren't bound by traditional banking regulations. How much cash do you have access to right now? I asked. Maybe 300 in checking. That's it. Everything else is frozen pending the bankruptcy proceedings, and my credit cards are maxed out. He laughed bitterly. The golden child is officially broke. I did quick mental math. 20,000 to buy Ryan breathing room until Rachel's contract position could start generating income. 20,000 to keep loan sharks away from our family. 20,000 to bridge the gap between his old life falling apart and his new one potentially beginning. Ryan, I might have a solution. But you're not going to like it. At this point, I'll take any solution that doesn't involve broken bones. I took a deep breath, knowing I was about to cross a line I couldn't uncross. I can lend you the 20,000. The phone went silent except for road noise. Sarah, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. One-time loan to cover Thursday's payment and buy you time to get on your feet with Rachel's job. I pulled up my savings account balance, watching my carefully accumulated emergency fund calculate down to a number that would leave me uncomfortably exposed. But this comes with conditions. Anything. Name it. First condition, you tell mom and dad everything Sunday night, exactly like we discussed. No sugarcoating, no minimizing, no protecting their feelings at the expense of their safety. Done. Second condition, you take Rachel's interview seriously. I mean study for 3 days seriously. I'm going to send you technical materials tonight, and you're going to learn enough about supply chain optimization to have an intelligent conversation about Velocity Tech's failures. I'll study everything you send. Third condition, if you get the job, 50% of your take-home pay goes to loan repayment until you've paid back everything you owe, the 20,000 to me, the remaining debt to Tony's people, and every penny of mom and dad's retirement money. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. 50% doesn't leave much to live on. Then you'll get a roommate and eat ramen like I did for 2 years after college. Welcome to how normal people build their lives. You're right. I deserve that. Fourth and final condition, if you ever, and I mean ever, dismiss my professional expertise or treat me like the family disappointment again, I will personally make sure every tech company in the city knows exactly why Velocity Tech really failed. Sarah. I'm serious, Ryan. This is your one chance to rebuild our relationship on equal terms. Screw it up, and I'm done. I heard him pull into what sounded like a parking lot, hopefully the police station. I accept all your conditions, he said quietly. And Sarah? I know I don't deserve this. I know I've been a terrible brother and that you have every right to let me face the consequences of my choices alone. You're right. I do have that right. Then why are you helping me? I stared out my living room window at the city lights, thinking about 28 years of family dynamics that were about to shift forever. Because someone in this family needs to break the cycle, I said finally. And apparently, it's going to be me. I transferred the $20,000 to Ryan's account at 11:23 p.m., watching my savings balance drop from 6 figures to something that made my stomach clench. 3 years of careful budgeting, side consulting, and living below my means, gone in a single wire transfer to save the brother who'd spent decades treating me like an afterthought. My phone rang almost immediately. Sarah, the transfer went through. I can't believe you actually, Ryan's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you. I'm at the police station now, and knowing I can meet Tony's deadline is the first time I've been able to breathe all week. Don't thank me yet. File the report, make the payment Thursday, and then we'll see if you can actually follow through on everything else. I pulled up my laptop and started drafting an email with study materials. I'm sending you 15 articles about supply chain optimization, 3 case studies on AI logistics failures, and a breakdown of why your Velocity Tech algorithms were fundamentally flawed. You have 36 hours to become conversant enough to impress Rachel. I won't let you down. Ryan, one more thing. When you meet with Tony Thursday, you record the conversation on your phone. Legal or not, I want documentation of everything he says. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet condo, staring at my depleted savings account and wondering if I just made the smartest decision of my life or the stupidest. $28,000 left in emergency savings. Not enough to weather a job loss, medical emergency, or any of the other disasters that required adult safety nets. I just bet my financial security on the golden child's ability to finally grow up. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate Jake. Saw you're up late. Everything okay? Just made either the best or worst decision of my adult life, I texted back. We'll know by Sunday which one. Want to talk about it? I considered it, but how could I explain the complexity of family dynamics that led to me giving my disaster brother enough money to buy a decent car? How could I articulate the strange satisfaction of finally being the one with power in our relationship, even if that power came with enormous financial risk? Rain check, I replied. But if you hear screaming from my room Sunday night, it's probably my parents finding out their golden child destroyed their retirement. Wednesday crawled by with agonizing slowness. I threw myself into work, pushing code reviews and architecture meetings to distract from obsessively checking my phone for updates from Ryan. At 2:17 p.m., he texted, studying supply chain optimization theory. Did you know most logistics algorithms are basically just variations on the traveling salesman problem? Mind blown. At least he was taking the technical preparation seriously. At 4:33 p.m., holy shit, Sarah. I found the GitHub repository you mentioned. I can't believe we left our entire codebase public. No wonder the patent lawsuit was so straightforward, they literally just pointed to our own commits as evidence. Progress. Maybe. At 6:45 p.m., a message that made my blood freeze. Meeting with Tony went better than expected. Recorded everything. He seemed almost friendly once I handed over the cash. Said he respected family that took care of each other and hoped my sister understood the value of maintaining good relationships. Sarah, I think he was warning you to stay cooperative. I stared at that message for 10 minutes before responding. Did he say anything else about me specifically? He mentioned that software engineers probably had good job security and steady income. Asked if you were close family or just someone willing to help out occasionally. The implications were crystal clear. Tony wasn't just collecting Ryan's debt, he was evaluating me as a potential long-term resource. The $20,000 hadn't bought Ryan's freedom, it had bought him time while putting me squarely in the crosshairs as the family member with actual money. I just painted a target on my own back to save my brother's ass. Thursday morning arrived with a text from Ryan at 5:47 a.m., outside Rachel's building. Been here since 5 a.m. reading your materials. I think I actually understand why our algorithms suck now. Wish me luck. I was in back-to-back meetings all morning, but I kept checking my phone obsessively. At 11:23 a.m., nothing. At 12:15 p.m., still nothing. By 1:30 p.m., I was convinced the interview had been a disaster and Ryan was somewhere drowning his sorrows or planning to disappear entirely. Then, at 2:04 p.m., holy shit, Sarah. I got it. I actually got the job. I nearly dropped my phone in the middle of a sprint planning meeting. I excused myself and called him immediately. Rachel offered me the position, Ryan said, his voice shaky with disbelief. 6 months, contract to hire, exactly what you said. But Sarah, the interview was brutal. She grilled me for 2 hours about every technical decision we made at Velocity Tech. And you handled it? I told her the truth. That I was an arrogant business major who thought I could fake technical expertise with buzzwords and borrowed credibility. That every single engineering decision was wrong because I didn't understand the fundamentals. His voice got steadier. She said that was the first honest assessment of a startup failure she'd heard in years. Relief flooded through me. When do you start? Monday. But there's a catch, she wants me to present a complete technical postmortem of Velocity Tech to her development team next Friday. Full analysis of what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how it could have been prevented. Ryan paused. She basically wants me to publicly dissect my own failure in front of actual engineers. Good, I said. That's exactly what you need to do. Yeah, I know. It's going to be humiliating, but I deserve it. He took a shaky breath. Sarah, I have something else to tell you. After the interview, Rachel and I grabbed coffee, and she mentioned something interesting about Marcus. My stomach tightened. What about Marcus? He didn't just quit Velocity Tech because the company was failing. Apparently, 3 weeks before he left, he scheduled a meeting with you directly, not through me. He wanted to bring you in as a consulting CTO to help salvage the technical architecture. I went cold. Ryan, I never got any meeting request from Marcus. I know. Because I intercepted it. His voice got very small. He sent the meeting invitation to your work email, but it also went to the shared Velocity Tech calendar system I had access to. I saw it before you did. You intercepted my email. I deleted the meeting request and told Marcus you declined. That you were too busy with your corporate job to help a startup. The confession tumbled out in a rush. He offered you a consulting rate of $1,500 per hour, Sarah. $1,500 an hour to spend 2 weeks auditing our code and fixing our architecture problems. I did the math automatically. 2 weeks at $1,500 per hour, that was $60,000. More than my annual consulting income, for 2 weeks of work that might have saved Velocity Tech and our parents' retirement money. You cost me $60,000 because you were too proud to let your sister fix your broken code, I said, my voice deadly quiet. I know. I know how fucked up that was. But at the time, I convinced myself you wouldn't understand our innovative approach, that Marcus just didn't appreciate how disruptive our platform was going to be. Ryan's voice cracked. Sarah, if I hadn't deleted that email, if I'd let you take that meeting, Velocity Tech would probably still exist, I finished. Mom and Dad would still have their retirement money. You wouldn't owe loan sharks $400,000. And I'd be $60,000 richer. I destroyed everything because I couldn't stand the idea of my older sister saving my company. I hung up the phone and sat in my car in Pinnacle's parking garage, shaking with rage. It wasn't just the money, though $60,000 would have more than covered the $20,000 I'd just loaned him. It wasn't even the principal, though intercepting my professional communications was a violation I could barely comprehend. It was the realization that every single disaster in Ryan's life, every debt, every threat, every consequence our family was now facing, could have been prevented if he'd been able to swallow his pride for 5 minutes and let me help. The golden child hadn't just failed. He'd actively sabotaged the solution to his own problems because accepting help from his overlooked sister was more terrifying than losing everything. Sunday dinner was going to be very interesting indeed. I spent Thursday night and all of Friday in a haze of anger so pure it felt almost meditative. $60,000. Ryan had cost me $60,000 because his ego couldn't handle the possibility that his sister might be better at something than him. But the rage crystallized into something colder and more focused when I realized the full implications of what he'd admitted. I pulled up my email archives and searched for any correspondence from Marcus Chin around that time frame. Nothing. Then I checked my spam folder, my blocked messages, even my LinkedIn inbox. Ryan hadn't just deleted one meeting request. He'd somehow intercepted all of Marcus's attempts to contact me. Friday at lunch, I called Marcus directly. Sarah. I was hoping you'd reach out eventually, he said, sounding genuinely pleased. I've been following your work at Pinnacle. That DEFCON presentation on AI optimization was brilliant. Marcus, I need to ask you something directly. Did you try to contact me in April about consulting for Velocity Tech? There was a pause. I tried for 3 weeks to set up a meeting with you. Your brother kept saying you were too busy, but I kept pushing because I knew you were exactly what we needed. His voice got tighter. Why? What did Ryan tell you? He told me yesterday that he intercepted your communications and lied to both of us about my availability. He what? Marcus's voice exploded through the phone. Sarah, I sent you 12 emails. 12. I called Pinnacle's main number twice trying to reach you. I even asked Ryan for your personal cell phone number, and he said you'd specifically requested that family business stay separate from your professional work. My hand started shaking. 12 emails. I offered you $1,800 per hour, not $1,500 like Ryan said. And it wasn't for 2 weeks. I wanted you for a month-long engagement with potential equity participation if you could turn the company around. Marcus's voice was full of disgust. Sarah, I would have given you 5% of Velocity Tech if you'd saved us. Based on our projected valuation, that would have been worth $2 million within 3 years. $2 million. Ryan hadn't just cost me a consulting fee, he'd potentially cost me generational wealth. Marcus, I said quietly, I need you to forward me every email you sent. Every communication attempt. All of it. I'll send everything right now. Sarah, I am so sorry. I had no idea Ryan was blocking our communications. If I'd known. He trailed off. Actually, this explains a lot about why he seemed so resistant to bringing in senior technical help. After Marcus hung up, I sat in my car in Pinnacle's parking lot watching 37 emails download to my phone. 37 attempts to offer me the opportunity of a lifetime, all intercepted by my brother who was simultaneously driving his company into the ground and borrowing money from loan sharks. The final email, dated 3 days before Marcus quit, was the most damning. Sarah, I'm assuming your continued silence means you're not interested in helping Velocity Tech, but I wanted to make one last attempt. Your brother's technical decisions are going to destroy this company within 6 months. We both know you could fix our architecture problems in a few weeks. I'm begging you to reconsider. If it's about money, name your price. If it's about equity, I'll give you whatever percentage you want. We need you. Marcus. Ryan had read this email. Had seen Marcus literally begging for my help, offering me unlimited compensation and equity stakes. And he deleted it rather than admit he needed his sister. I screenshotted every single email and sent them to Ryan with a message. We need to talk before Sunday dinner. Your place, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Don't make me hunt you down. His response came back immediately. Sarah, I can explain. No explanations. Just be there. Saturday afternoon, I drove to Ryan's new reality, a studio apartment in a converted motel on the outskirts of town, about as far from his downtown penthouse as you could get while staying in the same city. The Honda Civic was parked outside Unit 23, looking like it had been his bedroom for several nights running. Ryan opened the door before I could knock. He looked worse than he had at the coffee shop, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago, with the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. Sarah, please let me. 37 emails, I said, walking past him into the cramped studio. Marcus sent me 37 emails trying to hire me, and you intercepted every single one. The apartment was depressing, a fold-out couch, a card table with his laptop, and a mini-fridge that probably came with the rental. But what caught my attention was the wall covered in printed articles about supply chain optimization, post-it notes with technical diagrams, and what looked like a complete breakdown of Velocity Tech's failed architecture. You've been studying, I observed. 18 hours a day since Thursday. I start at Rachel's Monday morning, and I'm not going to embarrass you by failing. He gestured at the wall. I finally understand what we were trying to build, and why every single technical decision was wrong. Good. Now explain to me why you stole $2 million from your sister. Ryan's face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be $2 million. I didn't know about the equity offer until Marcus told Rachel about it this week. But you knew about the consulting fees. You knew Marcus was desperate enough to pay me whatever I asked. I sat down on his couch, which smelled like the car air freshener he'd been living in. Walk me through your thought process, Ryan. Help me understand how you justified sabotaging my career to protect your ego. He slumped into the folding chair by his card table. I was terrified that you'd take one look at our code and realize I had no idea what I was doing. You had no idea what you were doing anyway. Your company still failed. But if you'd come in and fixed everything, then everyone would have known the success was because of you, not me. Mom and Dad, our investors, the tech blogs that were writing about Velocity Tech, they'd all realized their golden boy was a fraud who needed his big sister to save him. I stared at him, finally understanding the complete narcissism of his thinking. So you chose to let the company die rather than share credit for saving it. I thought I could figure it out myself. I kept thinking I was just one breakthrough away from proving that I deserved all the faith everyone had put in me. His voice got smaller. I'd rather fail as the leader than succeed as your assistant. And now? Ryan looked around his depressing studio apartment, then at the wall covered with everything he should have learned 2 years ago. Now I know that pride is the most expensive thing you can buy. And I've been shopping with other people's money. Tomorrow night, he was going to confess everything to our parents. The failed company, the missing retirement funds, the loan sharks, the intercepted emails, and the $2 million in opportunities he'd stolen from me to protect his image. The golden child was finally going to learn what consequences felt like. But first, I had one more surprise for him. Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt like attending a funeral where the guest of honor didn't know he was dead yet. Mom had outdone herself with the lasagna, complete with garlic bread and the good china we only used for special occasions. Dad was in his favorite armchair, asking Ryan about his exciting news, while Mom bustled around serving wine like we were celebrating something wonderful. So, son, Dad said, cutting into his lasagna, your mother mentioned you had an announcement. Please tell me you've got another investor lined up for Velocity Tech. I watched Ryan's face go pale. He'd been pushing food around his plate for 10 minutes without taking a bite, and his hands were visibly shaking. Actually, Dad, I need to tell you something about Velocity Tech. Ryan's voice cracked on the company name. The thing is, there's not going to be any more investors. Mom looked up from her salad. What do you mean, honey? I mean the company is done. We filed for bankruptcy last Monday. The words came out in a rush. Velocity Tech is finished. It's over. I lost everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Mom set down her wine glass so hard I was surprised it didn't shatter. But you said the series of funding was going so well, Mom whispered. You said you had clients lined up, that you just needed a little more time. I lied, Ryan said, his voice barely audible. I've been lying to you for months. The company has been failing since last year, and I kept taking your money anyway. Dad's face went through several colors before settling on a dangerous shade of red. Our money. The $200,000 you gave me in January. Your retirement fund, the equity loan on the house. Ryan couldn't look at either of them. It's gone. All of it. And I owe $340,000 more to creditors and... He swallowed hard. To some people who aren't traditional lenders. What kind of people? Dad's voice had gone very quiet, which was always more terrifying than when he yelled. The kind who break arms when you don't pay them back on time. Mom made a sound like she'd been physically hit. Ryan Michael Chen, what have you done? And then my brother did something I'd never seen him do in 28 years. He told the complete, unvarnished truth. About Velocity Tech's technical failures, about borrowing money from loan sharks, about putting our family in danger, about living in his car and getting evicted from the penthouse. He told them about Tony's threats, about the intercepted emails from Marcus, about the $2 million in opportunities he'd cost me. He told them everything. When he finished, Dad was staring at his untouched plate and Mom was crying into her napkin. The lasagna had gone cold, and the good china suddenly seemed absurdly inappropriate for the occasion. So let me understand this, Dad said slowly. You destroyed our retirement, put your mother in danger from loan sharks, and cost your sister $2 million because you were too proud to let her help you. Yes, Ryan whispered. And now what? You expect us to somehow fix this mess you've made? Ryan finally looked up, meeting Dad's eyes for the first time all evening. No. I expect to spend the next several years paying back every penny I cost this family. Sarah got me a job interview, and I start Monday as a junior analyst making $48,000 a year. 50% goes to loan repayment until I've covered everything I owe, Sarah's loan, the creditors, and every dollar of your retirement money. That could take decades, Mom said through her tears. Then it takes decades. Ryan's voice was steadier now. I broke our family's trust, and I'm going to spend however long it takes to earn it back. I've been quiet through the entire confession, watching our parents process the destruction of their golden child. But now it was my turn. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. Ryan, remember when you asked if I could get you hired at Pinnacle Solutions? He nodded, confused. I never answered that question. I scrolled to an email I'd received Friday afternoon. Turns out Marcus Chen has been recommending me to companies all over the city. Dataflow Solutions offered me a senior architect position this week. $160,000 base salary, plus equity. Ryan's eyes widened. Sarah, that's amazing. I'm taking it, I continued. Which means I'll have an opening on my team at Pinnacle. A junior developer position, perfect for someone with business experience who's ready to learn technical skills from the ground up. The implication hit him like a truck. You're offering me your job. I'm offering you the chance to earn a job. Technical interview, coding challenges, the whole process. If you can prove you've actually learned something from studying 18 hours a day. I met his eyes directly. No family favors, no special treatment. You'll succeed or fail based entirely on your own merit. For the first time since I'd known him, my brother looked genuinely humbled. I won't let you down. You already have, Ryan. The question is whether you're finally ready to do better. 6 months later, Ryan passed his probationary period at Pinnacle and converted to a full-time junior developer. He lives in the same studio apartment, drives the same 10-year-old Honda, and sends me payment updates every month as he slowly chips away at his massive debt. Mom and Dad are still struggling financially, but they're not losing the house. Ryan's monthly payments, combined with my continued help with their expenses, are keeping them stable while Dad looks for part-time work to supplement his reduced pension. The loan sharks got paid off first. Ryan was terrified enough of Tony to prioritize that debt above everything else. Smart choice. At family dinners now, Ryan asks me about work. Really asks technical questions about architecture decisions, algorithm optimization, career development. He listens to my answers like they matter, because he's finally learned they do. The golden child is gone. In his place is my brother, working 16-hour days to rebuild his life from nothing, finally understanding that respect isn't inherited, it's earned. And for the first time in 28 years, our family is actually functioning like we're all worth the same amount of love.